He wakes with a start, expecting the scratchy straw of his cottage, but instead finds himself sprawled on cold, broken stone. The sky above is choked with smoke, the air thick with a sharp, burning scent he's never known. Around him, strange towers of glass and metal rise like the bones of giants, shattered and smoldering. A deafening roar splits the silence. A metal beast thunders past, spitting fire. Nothing like the oxen or carts of his world. Instinctively, he ducks, heart pounding, mind racing with terror and confusion. Is this hell? A punishment from angry saints? Every sense screams danger. Yet beneath the panic, old survival instincts flicker, hide, move, endure. He scans the chaos for anything familiar, desperate for shelter or a friendly face. The world has ended, or perhaps begun again, and he is its most unlikely survivor. What happens next is anyone's guess. First impressions: magic, monsters, and metal birds. He stumbles through the ruins, every step a journey deeper into a waking nightmare. The world around him is a twisted tapestry of wonders and horrors, each more impossible than the last. A monstrous carriage, armored and bristling with cannons, lumbers past on tracks of steel, its roar shaking the ground. He gapes, certain he's glimpsed a dragon in disguise, its breath not fire, but thunder and smoke. Overhead, metal birds wheel and shriek, their wings unmoving, their cries sharper than any hawk. He ducks instinctively, half expecting talons or a rain of arrows, but instead a rain of fire erupts in the distance, lighting the sky with unnatural colors. He remembers the tales told by the old women in his village, stories of witches who could ride the wind, of demons who haunted the night, of saints who could call down lightning with the word. But nothing in those stories prepared him for this. The machines that crawl and fly, the lights that flicker without flame, the voices that echo from nowhere. Each is a miracle or a curse, and he cannot tell which. He wonders if he's wandered into the realm of the Fae, or if some sorcerer's spell has cast him into a world beyond reason. A sudden explosion rattles his bones, and he flinches, clutching a splintered stick as if it might ward off evil. He peers into the shadows, half expecting to see goblins or trolls lurking among the rubble. Instead, he sees only more ruins, more strange objects, boxes that glow with ghostly light, wires that snake like enchanted vines, shattered chariots with wheels of black stone. He approaches one cautiously, poking it with his stick, half expecting it to bite. When nothing happens, he laughs nervously, the sound swallowed by the distant wail of sirens. Everywhere he looks, the world is alive with magic and menace. He sees faces flickering in broken glass, hears voices whispering from metal boxes, feels the ground tremble as unseen giants march nearby. He mutters a prayer, fingers fumbling for a charm or relic, anything to ward off the spirits he's sure are watching. Yet beneath the fear, a strange fascination grows. If this is the end of days, it is more wondrous and terrible than any priest or bard ever imagined. And as he moves forward, he cannot help but wonder what other marvels and monsters await him in this new world.
The art of not dying. Medieval survival instinct. For a moment, panic threatens to swallow him whole. But then, almost without thinking, the peasant's body and mind slip into the old rhythms of survival, habits honed by years of scraping through famine, plague, and the unpredictable wrath of nature and nobility alike. Hunger, cold, and danger are not new enemies. They are old companions, as familiar as the ache in his back or the calluses on his hands. In this strange new world, he finds himself relying on the same instincts that kept him alive through countless lean winters and hungry springs. He moves quietly, keeping to the shadows, just as he once did to avoid the Lord's men or a prowling wolf. Every ruined wall becomes a potential hiding place, every pile of debris a possible shelter. He scans the ground for edible plants, his eyes trained to spot wild greens and roots that city dwellers would overlook. A patch of dandelions, a cluster of nettles, these are treasures, not weeds. He remembers how to dig for tubers, how to test berries for poison, how to set a simple snare with nothing but a bit of string and patience. Where others might see only devastation, he sees opportunity. Firewood in the splintered beams, water in the rain puddles, warmth in a pile of discarded rags. Improvisation is second nature. He fashions a crude cloak from a torn curtain, knots a length of wire into a snare, sharpens a piece of metal into a makeshift knife. He knows how to mend, patch, and repurpose, because nothing was ever wasted in his old life. Even fear is a tool. He listens to it, lets it guide him away from danger, but never lets it freeze him in place. He remembers the stories of neighbors who survived by wit and caution, who hid in root cellars or vanished into the woods when trouble came. He is not paralyzed by the unknown, he is driven by it. In a world where the rules have changed, his old skills become new strengths. The art of not dying is something he has practiced all his life. Now, in the chaos of this shattered future, those hard-won lessons may be the difference between life and death. For the first time since waking, he feels a flicker of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, he is more prepared for this world than anyone else. Food, glorious food, foraging in a fallout zone. Food is never far from a peasant's mind, and in this strange, broken world, his instincts take over. He doesn't even glance at the shattered supermarkets with their flickering lights and empty shelves. Those places reek of danger and confusion, filled with things he can't name and machines that might bite. Instead, he turns to the wild, just as he always has. The city's ruins are a new kind of forest, and he knows how to hunt for what others overlook. He scans the cracks in the pavement for stubborn weeds, dandelion leaves, chickweed, wild garlic. These plants would have been a welcome addition to his meager medieval stew. He grins at the thought of city folk turning up their noses at such fare, not realizing these weeds are a feast for the desperate and the wise. He moves quietly, eyes sharp for movement. A scrawny pigeon pecks at crumbs near a burned-out car. To most, it's just a nuisance, but to him, it's dinner. He remembers how to set a snare, how to lure a bird with a handful of seeds or a shiny trinket. Rats are too fair game. He's eaten worse in lean years, and hunger is a powerful motivator. He checks for signs of water, knowing that where there's moisture, there's life. A muddy puddle might hold frogs or snails, both delicacies in times of need. He's careful, though, wary of poison and sickness. He tests berries with the old methods, rubbing them on his skin, waiting for a reaction, only tasting the tiniest bit at first. Preservation is second nature. He dries leaves and roots in the sun, smokes strips of meat over a scavenged fire, buries food in cool earth to keep it from spoiling. Salt is a rare treasure, but he knows how to use ash and smoke to stretch a meal. Where modern survivors might panic at the empty shells, he feels a strange confidence. He's lived through famine before, and he knows that food is everywhere if you know where to look and how to use it. He almost laughs imagining the panic of city dwellers who've never gone a day without bread or meat. For him, every meal is a victory, every mouthful a reminder that survival belongs to those who know how to find abundance in the unlikeliest place.
Building a home when the world ends. Shelter is not a luxury for a medieval peasant. It's a necessity. A matter of life and death learned from years of braving storms in leaky cottages and patching holes with whatever the land provided. In this new world, surrounded by the skeletons of buildings and the detritus of a lost civilization, he feels oddly at home. Where others see chaos and confusion, he sees opportunity. The ruins are a treasure trove. Broken doors become sturdy walls, shattered windows offer glass for cutting, twisted metal can be hammered into nails or hooks. He moves with purpose, scavenging what he needs, his hands working with the confidence of someone who has built shelter from nothing more than mud, straw, and hope. He chooses a spot shielded from the wind, near a stand of trees and a trickle of water. The city's concrete slabs become the foundation, while fallen branches and scraps of plastic serve as roof and insulation. He weaves together mats of grass and leaves, layering them for warmth, just as he once did with rushes on the cottage floor. Every piece of debris is examined, repurposed, and fitted into place. He builds low to keep in the heat, and lines the walls with anything that might block the cold. Old newspapers, rags, even piles of leaves. The result is not pretty, but it is sturdy, and it keeps out the worst of the wind and rain. He watches, bemused, as modern survivors fumble with tents they can't assemble or shiver in cars that offer no warmth once the fuel runs out. They curse their dead batteries and broken gadgets, while he sharpens a stick for digging and knots rope from strips of cloth. He knows how to make do, how to adapt, how to survive when comfort is a memory. The skills that once marked him as poor now make him rich in resourcefulness. As night falls and the temperature drops, he huddles in his makeshift shelter, listening to the wind howl outside. He wonders if it will hold, if the roof will leak, if the walls will stand against the next storm. But he is not afraid. He has weathered worse with less. In a world where technology has failed, it is the old ways, the peasants' ways, that offer the best chance of survival. And as he drifts to sleep, he feels a quiet pride, knowing that he has built a home when the world itself has come undone. Medieval medicine versus modern mayhem. In a world where hospitals are rubble and pharmacies are looted shells, the peasant's approach to medicine is suddenly not so primitive after all. He's never known the comfort of a doctor's visit or the certainty of a pill. His remedies have always come from the earth, from the hedgerow and the garden, from knowledge passed down in whispers and worn hands. A scratch or a fever is nothing new. He survived worse with little more than a poultice and a prayer. Now, as modern survivors panic over dwindling supplies and expired bottles, he calmly surveys the weeds and wildflowers pushing through the cracks. He knows which leaves soothe burns, which roots draw out infection, which berries are best left untouched. Plantain for wounds, yarrow to stop bleeding, elderberry for fever. These are his medicines, and he trusts them more than any bottle with a label he can't read. He chews willow bark for pain, packs wounds with honey or cobwebs, and boils nettles for strength. Some of his cures a little more than superstition, but many have real power, the kind that modern science would one day rediscover. He laughs to himself, remembering the old village healer who swore by leeches and garlic, and wonders what the city folk would think if he saw him now, brewing a stinging nettle tea in a tin can over a fire. Of course, not everything works. He has no cure for a bullet wound, no answer for radiation sickness, no way to set a broken bone except with splints and hope. He knows the limits of his craft, and he's seen enough death to respect the dangers. But he also knows that fear is as deadly as any wound, and that a calm mind and steady hands can save lives when all else fails. He shares what he knows with others, teaching them to recognize healing plants, to clean wounds with boiled water, to trust in the old ways when the new ones are gone. There's a strange comfort in the familiar rituals, crushing herbs, tying bandages, muttering half-remembered prayers. In the chaos of modern mayhem, the peasant's medicine is a thread to the past, a reminder that survival is not just about strength, but about knowledge, patience, and the stubborn hope that even in the darkest times, healing is possible.
Medieval social skills. In the medieval world, survival was never a solo endeavor. The peasant's life was woven into the fabric of the village. Neighbors who shared bread, gossiped over fences, and came together when the harvest failed or wolves prowled too close. Now, in this fractured new world, those old social instincts become his greatest asset. Where modern survivors eye each other with suspicion, hoarding supplies and guarding secrets, the peasant seeks out company, knowing that a lone soul rarely lasts long. He approaches others with the cautious friendliness of someone who spent a lifetime navigating feuds and alliances, reading faces for signs of trust or treachery. Bartering is second nature. He has no use for paper money or plastic cards, but he knows the value of a sharp knife, a handful of dried herbs, a warm cloak. He offers what he can, skills, food, a helping hand, and expects the same in return. In the village, favors were currency and reputation was everything. He quickly learns who can be relied on, who is generous, and who is best avoided. Sometimes his old ways clash with modern habits. He's baffled by arguments over ownership of abandoned goods or the reluctance to share a fire on a cold night. He tells stories to break the ice, spinning tales of harvest festivals and winter feasts, and is surprised when laughter eases the tension. Yet, not all his skills translate perfectly. He's used to a world where everyone knows everyone's business, where privacy is a luxury and secrets are rare. Modern survivors, shaped by years of individualism, sometimes bristle at his directness or his habit of pitching in unasked. But when disaster strikes, a fire, an injury, a sudden storm, it's the peasant who rallies the group, organizing tasks, dividing food, and reminding everyone that together is safer than alone. His sense of community, forged in the fields and hearths of a vanished age, becomes a lifeline for those willing to accept it. There's suspense in every new encounter, a risk in every alliance, but the peasant's social skills, honed by necessity and tradition, help him build fragile bridges in a world of broken trust. In the end, it's not just his knowledge of plants or shelter that keeps him alive. It's his ability to turn strangers into allies and a handful of survivors into something like a village once more.
Medieval ingenuity versus modern warfare. The machines are everywhere, rolling, flying, watching. To the peasant, they are monsters of legend come to life. Iron golems and metal wyverns that prowl the ruins with unblinking eyes. But fear, he knows, is only useful if it sharpens the mind. He studies these beasts from the shadows, noting their habits, their blind spots, the way they move and pause, the strange lights that flicker when they sense something near. He remembers the old stories of foxes outwitting hounds, of poachers slipping past the Lord's men, and he adapts those lessons to this new mechanical wilderness. He learns quickly that the machines are powerful but not invincible. Their vision is straight and narrow, their hearing sharp but easily fooled. He covers himself in mud and ash to mask his scent, crawls low through the rubble, and times his movements to the rhythm of distant explosions. When a drone hovers overhead, he ducks beneath a collapsed roof or slips into a sewer, trusting darkness and silence more than any wall. He crafts decoys from scraps, dangling rags to flutter in the wind, broken mirrors to catch the sun and mislead the watchers. It's a game of patience and nerve, and he finds a strange thrill in outwitting these soulless sentinels. Sometimes he uses the machine's own power against them. He sets traps in their paths,
pits covered with debris, tripwires strung from twisted wire, distractions that lure them away from his hiding place. He remembers how villagers once drove off wolves with fire and noise, and he adapts those tricks, lighting small blazes or banging on pipes to draw attention elsewhere. The machines are relentless, but they lack the cunning of a desperate man with nothing to lose. There's humor in the absurdity of it all. A barefoot peasant, armed with nothing but wits and scraps, playing cat and mouse with the gods of war. Yet in this David and Goliath struggle, he discovers a sense of empowerment. The world may be ruled by machines, but they are predictable, and he is not. Each narrow escape, each small victory is a reminder that even in an age of steel and circuits, the oldest kind of cleverness still has its place. And as he slips unseen through the ruins, he wonders what other ancient tricks might yet turn the tide. Faith, folklore, and facing the end. When the world seems to have ended, the peasant's mind turns instinctively to the old comforts, faith, folklore, and the rituals that once made sense of chaos. In his village, every hardship had a story, every disaster a reason, and every night was softened by prayer or a whispered charm. Now, surrounded by ruins and thunder, he clings to these traditions as a lifeline. He crosses himself at every strange noise, mutters blessings over his meager meals, and tucks a scrap of cloth, once a Saint's Day token, into his pocket for luck. The world may be unrecognizable, but the shape of hope remains the same. He remembers tales of the world's end, of fire and darkness, of angels and monsters. The machines and explosions become the dragons and demons of his childhood stories, and he faces them with the same mixture of fear and awe. When the sky glows red at night, he recalls the village priest's warnings about omens and signs, and he searches for meaning in every shadow. Sometimes he finds comfort in the old songs, humming them softly as he works or hides, the melodies a thread connecting him to everyone he's lost. Superstition becomes a shield. He draws protective symbols in the dust, hangs bits of twisted metal as makeshift charms, and avoids places that feel wrong, trusting his gut as much as any logic. He shares these rituals with others, and sometimes even the most skeptical survivors join in, desperate for anything that might keep the darkness at bay. In a world stripped of certainty, these small acts of faith offer structure and solace, a way to push back against despair. Yet faith is not just fear, it is also hope. The peasant believes, stubbornly, that the world can be rebuilt, that suffering is not the end of the story. He prays for guidance, for forgiveness, for a miracle, and in the act of praying he finds the strength to keep going. The apocalypse may have shattered the world he knew, but it cannot erase the stories, the rituals, or the stubborn hope that has always helped people face the unknown. As he looks to the uncertain future, he holds tight to the old beliefs, trusting that even in the darkest times, light can be found.
Would they survive? Lessons for us all. So, would a medieval peasant survive World War III? Against all odds, the answer is maybe better than most. The world he's been thrust into is terrifying, but so was the one he left behind. Hunger, cold, and danger are old adversaries, and he's learned to outlast them with grit, resourcefulness, and a stubborn refusal to give up. Where modern survivors might freeze in shock or mourn the loss of comfort, the peasant adapts, drawing on skills that were once dismissed as primitive, but now prove essential. He knows how to find food where others see only weeds, how to build shelter from scraps, how to heal with plants and patience, and how to turn strangers into allies. His faith and folklore give him hope when logic fails, and his sense of community becomes a shield against despair. There's a deep irony here. The very skills that marked him as poor and backward in his own time are the ones that give him an edge in this new world. The peasant's life was never easy, but it was always about survival, about making do, enduring, and finding meaning in the smallest victories. In a world stripped of technology, it's not the cleverest gadget or the fastest car that matters, but the ability to adapt, to improvise, and to keep going when everything else falls apart. For us, watching from the comfort of our modern lives, there's a lesson in his journey. We've built a world of convenience, but in doing so, we've lost touch with the old ways, the knowledge of the land, the value of community, the quiet strength that comes from facing hardship head-on. Maybe we don't need to give up our comforts, but we can remember what it means to be resilient, to help each other, to find hope in the darkest times. As the peasant faces the uncertain dawn of a ruined world, he stands as a reminder. Survival isn't about having the best tools, but about having the right spirit. And perhaps if the worst ever comes, it will be the ancient wisdom, the skills and stories of those who came before us that light the way forward.